1. Welcome to Made for More Living.
One small step for man.
With Johnny Jennings.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
The fastest and most exciting hour of news, events, and real estate in Northern California.
And this is a fact that was proved.
Powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Get ready. Here we go.
So we just came back from Cabo, we being my wife, my sons and I, and we were at a real estate event retreat in Cabo, and there was a quote that just slapped me upside the head, and it has something directly to do with today's guest. And the quote was, "You are just one Google search away from being replaced as a real estate agent."
Oh, wow.
Because if somebody doesn't like you, or they're not if you're not delivering a high level of service, all they have to do is type in real estate agents near me, and boom, now they have a plethora of people that they can reach out to.
Right.
So with us today is Alex Dyer, and he has some great coaching and some great information on how to make yourself the agent that nobody wants to replace. And if they do want to replace their agent, they're finding you on the internet. Thanks for having us today, Alex.
Hey, thanks for having me on, and I'm looking forward to sharing what I've learned about being that presence of mind agent.
So what? One of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show was we were standing in our beautiful office in Roseville, grabbing a cup of coffee, and you shared with me a story about how you met with Steve and helped him with his database. And I was just, wow, this guy knows exactly what he's talking about. More people need this information. Could you share just briefly how you met Steve and helped him with his database, and how it sounded like he had like a shoe, like, what do the accountants call it? They call them shoebox clients, where they come with a shoebox full of receipts and are like, here, fix this. Is that kind of what happened?
Well, Steve and I have been best friends for 30 years.
Wow.
We go back that far.
Okay.
We met when we were attending Chico State back in the day. And we've followed each other's careers. And we are both now, obviously, at eXp. And when I started my journey down using KV Core, which is now being rebranded Bold Trail, I was sharing with him just how powerful the platform was to be able to communicate with your clients. I don't want to throw Steve under the bus, because he is a very successful agent.
Very successful.
And he has built a huge team with eXp, and I am part of that team. But he came to me, and admittedly, he said, I've never really databased. And Johnny, the interesting thing I'm finding as I'm going in and coaching more and more agents is I'm finding that some of the most successful agents out there are not good communicators in running a database.
Absolutely.
And I have a meeting coming up tomorrow with an agent who stopped me in the hall yesterday and said, Alex, I have to start using KV Core Bold Trail. I have to start databasing, but I'm embarrassed to say I've never done it.
Yep.
And so he's going to sit with me, and I have a specific exercise I go through to start collecting that database together. But back to Steve. Steve came to me, and we've been friends forever. We're like brothers, and he is an agent who doesn't really embrace technology at the level that I do.
Very few people embrace it at the level you do.
Yes, and for whatever reason, I really just get into technology. I'm always curious. I'm always like, how can I find out how to make this work to grow? Mm-hmm. And so with Steve, I sat down, I went through this exercise, and where he really found traction was sitting down and using it every day to build a habit. I think he came to my house every day for 21 days straight, and he sat there, he used the platform to communicate with his database. And through that, he gained traction. He had transactions that came out of it pretty much right away.
Wow.
And anyone that knows Steve knows that he will give you the shirt off his back.
Exactly.
He wants to be everybody's hero. And when he was calling these past clients of his, they were happy to hear from him. And Johnny, when you think about it, when we're into a real estate transaction, we have this really high level business relationship with these clients for a period of time. It could be 30, 60, 90 days. It could be up to a year. And then once it's done, what do we do? What do we do with that client?
It's kind of awkward, honestly, because like you get into the you sometimes you know these people, sometimes they're friends, family members, referrals. Sometimes you don't know them from Adam, and all of a sudden you're thrust into, you know, their financial situation, you know their kids, you know their personal life, you know their work schedules. You can't call them between this time and this time because they're a night nurse and they're not going to be able to answer the phone. And then all of a sudden the transaction closes, they get what their home sells or they move into the new home. And then it's ghost, right? Because like, well, what we were bonding over isn't there anymore. And most agents don't know how to continue that conversation in a meaningful way, you know, post-transaction. But that's something you help with.
Yeah, and that's a discovery that I've made because I've always had that issue, that awkwardness of, okay, I've just closed. It's not like I'm Amazon where I have multiple products I'm going to sell.
Correct, yeah.
You know, I just really have one product. But we've been given permission to communicate with them. And there's a great book called Permission Marketing. And it really talks about how Amazon really used selling books early on to gain permission to be able to market back to the people that bought books. And so I've read Permission Marketing. And right now, I'm wrapping up my 12-week series on lead generation using the platform, and I've related it all back to permission marketing. So when you're out there as an agent and you have someone who has opted in to receive information from you, they've given you permission.
Yep.
Which, Johnny, in today's regulatory world, where we have new laws coming on the books against cold calling and spam emailing and spam texting.
Yep.
That permission, as an agent, you need to really respect that and understand what that means. So within the Bold Trail CRM, you're given that permission, and now you're marketing back to them. But what are you saying? What is that messaging?
Yeah.
And so we're fortunate to have Brent Gove, who brings in these huge real estate influencers, and we have our Thursday PCAR. Is it the third Thursday of the month?
Typically, yep, third Thursday of the month, yeah.
And so what I'm doing is I'm taking those presenters and I am getting that messaging out and I'm applying it to the platform. One of the more powerful ones was Ricky Caruth. He's in the Panhandle, Florida.
Yep.
He is a mega agent, runs a huge team, and he advocates for contacting your database every Friday. Every Friday at 4:30.
Via email.
Via email.
Yep.
So that's what I've started doing. I pop onto my YouTube channel. I do a market update using some of the tools that are within the KV Core Bold Trail platform, specifically the market report. And I just pop on and just say, this is what's going on with the market.
Yep.
I put it into an email template and I send it to my database. The whole process takes me probably 45 minutes.
Okay.
And I'm able to communicate with my entire database with 45 minutes of effort.
So I love what you're doing there. So email is one form of marketing, but sometimes when people hear marketing, they think, oh my gosh, like graphic design, or what am I going to say, writing copy. I was talking with an agent yesterday, and she met somebody, I think it was at a grocery store, and they just started talking and they connected. They just randomly bumped into each other like a Trader Joe's, and they have all these things in common. They attend the same church, and turns out this person's wanting to sell their house. And they're like, yeah, absolutely, we may have an agent, but we'd be happy to interview you as well. They gave my agent the contact info, and now she's like, Johnny, what do I do? How do I follow up? I texted them once and they're not responding. And so going back to your permission-based marketing, I said, well, ask them if they would like a net sheet, how much they're going to net off the property. Ask them if they would, if they're going to buy, if they're open to some buy before you sell programs, so that way they can make a seamless transition. Like again, you have permission to contact these people. Now give them something that they want. Don't just say, hey, when can we meet?
Yeah, you're adding value as an agent.
You're adding value, but that is essentially, she's doing this. She's trying to call them, right? Because verbal communication is the best way to convey a message, because you're actively engaging with each other. But if they're not answering, she's sending these messages via text. These marketing messages, I would argue, via text, permission-based marketing messages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, it comes down to what I think is the three key principles of establishing a relationship. So in your case with that client, what she should focus on is the know, the like, and the trust.
Yeah.
Okay, so they know her, they liked her enough to give the contact information. Now it's about building that trust.
Yeah.
And going back to the platform and sending out that communication every Friday. I'm building that trust with my database. And they are becoming familiar with who I am. They know what I look like. They know what I sound like. And it was kind of funny. I was at the grocery store the other day, and someone stopped me and had a conversation about real estate. Johnny, I had no idea who this person was.
Well, there you go.
And I was a little bit embarrassed because I had to stop him and say, I'm sorry, but I'm just not placing a name with your face. And they're like, oh, well, we see you on your Facebook channel every week, because I post my same update on Facebook, on YouTube, it's on Instagram, it's on my Google business page. That sort of traction is validation for all the effort that we put in to really getting our message out there and being that trusted advisor in the real estate space.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. Somebody just stopped you randomly in the grocery store because
Exactly.
they're seeing your messaging. So people give me a hard time because I always wear the same thing, or basically the same thing. But the reason why I do it is a couple of reasons. One, I don't want to think about what I'm going to wear. There's more pressing things to think about. And two, if they see me on, the radio show or on any of those other social platforms, I'm typically wearing what they saw me, wearing online.
Smart.
And so there's this continuity, because oftentimes you see them in there like a celebrity or somebody like somebody on the news. You see them dressed a certain way, and then you see them outside of that environment. There's a little bit of a disconnect there. And but anyways, that's one of the reasons why I do it. So that
It's
way
like
when
your uniform.
it's a uniform. So then
Yeah.
when I meet them, they're like, "Oh, you look just like." They expect it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a little shorter than they expected, but I look like how
He's got the iconic glasses.
got the
Yeah.
classic. Yeah. But
that's something I should probably work on as well. I wore black for you today because
There you go.
thank you.
Johnny's
Thank
wearing
you.
black. I'll wear my black.
Yeah, you knew.
Yeah.
Hey, well, when we come back, we're going to be talking about how you've helped not only Steve, but countless other agents. One specific agent, she went from only having 13 people, right, in her database.
Yeah.
And then you helped her. And then within a matter of days, she had 2 clients that she was working with. Back after this.
Well, spring is officially here. The weather's getting better. Maybe it's finally time. You're seeing all your neighbors do it. Maybe it's finally time to put your home on the market, but you're thinking, oh my goodness, it's too much of a hassle. I don't want to go through all those open houses, showings, get my house organized, do all of those costly home repairs. Did you know there's an easier way? Just reach out to Johnny Jennings. He guarantees at least 3 cash offers on your home in as-is condition. He's done it many times. It's nothing new to him. Take advantage of it. It's simple, it's easy, it's fast. Again, 3 cash offers on your home in as-is condition. Why not give it a shot? All you got to do is Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty. Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty and get more for your home.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So we are back in the studio with Alex Dyer, and we are talking about his Bold Trail Academy and how he helps agents go from, hey, what do? I don't have a database. How does this work? To having closed transactions. This isn't theory. This is actual, factual stuff that's taking place and helping people.
Yes.
In fact, and it's not just for EXP agents, right?
No. I've been at this Bold Trail for 3 years now.
Okay.
Consistency really pays off when you're in this space, and I have agents from other agencies who are contacting me. Recently, I had an agent from Remax reach out to me.
Because I believe Bold Trails is also offered with their brokerage as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's integrated into their tech package. And so, she reached out to me and she's like, I've seen your content. I really like what you're doing. I need some help. I need some help. And I said, okay, great.
Well, kudos to her for reaching out to you, but also that's impressive that you're putting out such incredible content that she wanted to reach out to the other side.
Yeah, sometimes when you do this stuff, Johnny, you sit there and you do it, and like I said, I've been at it for over 3 years now, and you think, God, am I going to get traction? Where's the traction hit with this? And my wife's been giving me a hard time, and so traction is finally here, and I have agents that are looking at my content, looking at the messaging and saying, okay, yeah, I need to talk to this guy. This guy's making sense. And so, I had this agent reach out to me with Remax. And, she'd seen my content. She'd been following me. And so I went in and did an initial evaluation of her KV Core, Gold Trail. And what I mean by this is, so she's a logged in user. She's uploaded data, her database, and she's kind of using the platform, but she's really not getting any results from it.
Okay.
And so what I do when an agent hires me to go and do this, the first thing I'll do is I'll go into that database and I'll do a search of their contacts, and I'll see how many complete contacts they have. So what is a complete contact? Well, it's obviously it's a first name, last name, it's a phone number, it's an email, and it's a property address.
It's a real first name, last name, not like bend over or something like that.
Exactly. You get that a lot when people register. You get, I'd say like 5% are actually.
Is it really that low? I thought it would be higher.
It's pretty
5%.
If you're doing more permission-based stuff, like what Alex is saying, but if you're doing bait and switch type of stuff, it's probably higher.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I went in and did that search. Now, this is a long-time agent. Agent's been in real estate for 30 years, a really solid producing agent, year in, year out.
Yep.
The agent had 13 completed contacts.
Okay.
13.
At least there's 13 in there.
And I just looked at the agent. I go, you've closed transactions, right? Oh, yeah, I've closed a lot. So here's what I did, Johnny. I went in to MLS and I did a search of that agent's IDs for sales and purchases going back to 1990. And we're talking about active, closed, expired, all of everything. I came up with almost 900
addresses,
900 transactions that she was related to.
Wow.
Could have been the buyer's agent, could have been the listing agent, whatever it was, 900. And so I downloaded this from MLS. Then you have to go and match it up with the names. So I had to upload it into another program, match it up with the current owner name, and then we went in and appended it for current email addresses and phone numbers.
So how did you do that? How did you get the so the MLS, you shared that. How do you get the names?
The name. So when you download from MLS, it just gives you the property address.
Yep.
You upload it. I use Fidelity's Title Toolbox.
Okay.
So you upload the database in the Title Toolbox, and it recognizes the property address and the zip code.
Okay.
And then from the property address and zip code, it marries it to the current county record of that property. So I did that. And then we have another service where you can go and append it with email addresses and phone numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go and you match that up to the do not call list because we're compliant with all of that, right?
So with the tool we like to use is Exact Dial.
Okay.
We call it skip tracing, right? Like if you have the name and address,
Yes.
but you don't have the phone or the email, we use Exact Dial. What is it you use when you're trying to get contact info?
So I use Title Toolbox through Fidelity.
I use it for everything.
And Title Toolbox has the you can append with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, we went through that exercise, uploaded it into her KV Core Bold Trail,
Mm-hmm.
and then she had to pick up the phone and call these people.
Ooh, the phone's heavy at that moment.
Boy, that thing is scary. But the amazing thing is she looked at the property, she looked at the name, she's like, oh yeah, I remember that one.
Yep.
Within the first day of calling, and I only think we were there for maybe 90 minutes, 2 hours calling, because when you start using the platform to reach out to your clients, there's certain things that you need to do when you make that phone call, make that text, that
Mm-hmm.
email. That way the system uses the AI to remember that you've made that contact, and then it cues you into a task to do later.
Okay.
And so that's where the system really gains traction and goes back to the 21 days of using it.
Yep,
So that
the habit's built.
Yeah, and then the AI is trained, and then it's going to cue you in. She had 4 transactions in the first day.
4.
She had 4 appointments set in the first day, and she just looked at me with just complete amazement. She's like, I don't know why I didn't do this a long time
And
ago.
these didn't cost her anything. Like, she's not paying for these leads. These are just people she's already worked with.
That's right.
And there's already a relationship there, or at least there was a relationship there at one point.
Yeah.
I would imagine for them to be like, hey, yes, thanks for reaching out. They still want there to be a relationship.
Yeah. It goes back to the know, like, and trust.
Yep.
You know, we're into this really heavy business transaction with our clients to buy and sell a house. Then it closes, and then we as agents, I think it's crazy. Like, I think 70% of us don't maintain an active database, which means we're not following up. We're not developing that relationship.
Correct.
And really, we're in the relationship business. The end result, Johnny, is that we're buying and selling houses for clients.
Mm-hmm.
But really, what we're doing is we're building relationships, and it comes down to that know, like, and trust. And so, in her case, she has now formed that habit, and I gave her a task to go into those 900 contacts and time block so that she spends an hour and 90 minutes a day where she goes into those 900 contacts and she sorts through it. And some of them are she just archives because they're no longer relevant. But shoot, even if 30% are still relevant today, you have 30% of them that still live in the house, still have the same phone number, the same email address. Well, that's 300 contacts that already know you.
Yep.
Johnny, how long would it take you to establish 300 contacts that know you and want to transact with you?
A long time.
It would take you a long time. And, we go in and we have several different ways of generating leads through the platform. But if you're an established agent, you can jump over all of that by just going back to your database. I call it falling on the sword, picking up the phone and say, hey, I'm really sorry that I haven't been in contact with you, but I'm still here. I still want to be your real estate agent. And to that point, I don't know if you recall Frank Klutz that came in and
Frank Klesitz?
Yes.
With viral marketing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he talked about this very thing, and he talked about how we don't maintain our database and what to do when you finally decide to engage with your database and go and reconnect with them. I created an entire smart campaign around that. So I took his content when he came in and spoke at PCAR. I got the messaging out of it, put it into a smart campaign, and I call it the neglected database smart campaign.
That's really good.
So as agents come into using the platform, if they haven't engaged with their database, I have a smart campaign ready to go for you.
It's plug and play.
That's right.
I do have a couple questions for you on this. So when an agent that is first engaging with these past clients, are you having them call directly through KV Core, or do you have them call from their personal phone for that initial touch?
So I have them call through their personal phone.
Me too.
I do.
Yeah.
There is a smart number feature within the platform, but that smart number feature, when you make that call, if that number isn't in their phone, it shows up as a
spam likely or whatever.
Spam likely, yes. So as you use the platform, you figure out what works. Not that may not work for other agents, but for me, what I find really, especially with new leads that come in, I'm not calling through the platform. What I'm doing is I am doing a quick video. Hey, thank you for registering with my website to look at houses. Let me know what you need, whatever that messaging is, and then I text it to them.
Love that.
You text them a personal message. Keep it to 30 seconds.
Yeah, quick.
Because Johnny, what does that do?
It humanizes you.
It certainly does. And I picked that up from another agent that said, look, this is how I'm increasing my conversion. And it comes down to those 3 core principles of know, like, and trust.
Exactly. Yeah. So what we teach agents to do is when they come to us, we help them create the database, we scrub it, and then we upload it into their CRM. And a lot of agents are like, but they're not going to know my number. They're like, why am I calling them through the CRM? Why am I going to text them? I said, not for the first phone call. For the first phone call, because again, if you've been doing this for a while, these are all people that already know you, that they want to hear from you. We're not just uploading random numbers into a CRM. So what you want to do is call them and say, hey, we have a whole process to go about the call. But at the end of it, just say, hey, by the way, I'm going to text you my work number. Please save it in your phone.
Yeah.
And then moving forward, just contact them through your work number.
Yeah. And that's a very good point to make is to say, look, we do have an office number, and this is what it is.
Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to share on or touch on, because I just got back from that event that Brent did in Cabo, nearly 1,000 agents, and a lot of them are using similar tactics or similar strategies, but very few. I have yet to run into somebody who bought another agent's book of business. And that is something that I did when I partnered with Tom, is I bought his book of business. Mm-hmm. And the main value in buying his business was his database. He had over 7,000 past clients in that database. And so when you're helping agents, especially these agents who have been doing it 10, 20, 30 years, create their database, you're not only helping them increase their business right now, but you're also helping them create a sellable asset that they can then leverage if they decide or when they decide to leave the industry. And that is like, it's like selling like a dental practice or your insurance book, right? You're just selling, you've created this asset for them. It's so whether you just got started and you are looking to grow your real estate business, create a database. If you've been doing this for a long time, create that database if you don't have it already, because that is a sellable asset.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point, is that what we do as real estate agents with creating a database and messaging to our sphere of influence, this should be done with every business out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not just real estate agents. If you are a plumbing contractor, if you are an attorney, a doctor, think of the third-party services that we use on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. Like I used a plumber like 6 months ago. I don't remember who that plumber is.
Yeah.
If I needed a plumber, I'd probably go back to Google Business and search for businesses in my areas that are plumber. The point is that every small business out there should really engage with valuing their content. Once I've given that plumber or that doctor or the florist or whatever it is, once I've given them permission, well, now you need to respect that and message back to them, and that way you're the presence of mind. Mm-hmm. Johnny, if you came to me right now and said, hey, do you know a good plumber? Well, I did. I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I can find them in my phone.
Yeah.
But if that plumber or the florist or the electrician or whoever it is, if they were messaging back, once they have the email address, once they have the phone number, you're going to remind people that you're out there. It takes a lot of time. And when I'm engaging with the one-on-one consulting with agents for KV Core, Johnny, I'm finding that I'm spending most of my time on their different social media platforms so that they have this congruent message that's going out. Mm-hmm. Do they have a Google Business account?
Oh my gosh, so many agents do not.
Yeah, and does the Google Business account look like the Facebook account? And does the Facebook look like Instagram? All of these different platforms, you need to have that messaging going out. Because it gets much deeper really quick, because then you get into your SEO, your search engine optimization. Mm-hmm. And that's why you have to have a Google Business page, because Google really is where everyone goes to search. And if you're not on Google, then you can't be found. And then if you're on Google and you're not actively updating your Google page with content on a weekly basis, well, Google's not going to rank you. And so there's just so many layers to this. And so really what I do is to try and overcome that anxiety is I put together a content schedule for the week. What do you need to do on Monday? What are you going to do on Tuesday? And it's just time blocking to make that content. I have that schedule, and by the end of the week, if I follow the whole schedule, I'm a little bit burnt out from doing it because there's just so much to it. But if you're going to compete in today's market, we are in a very unique position today because 25 years ago when I got into the business, we didn't have our own YouTube channels. We didn't have all of our own social media channels. We have that all today.
And the good news is it's free. Like you're not paying like to be on television. Like you're paying, you have your own television station on YouTube for free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do.
And then, so it's really important too. This is something like people talk about AI, they talk about CRMs, they talk about marketing, but where I'm having conversations with agents and even like home sellers is, hey, if an agent, so if I'm speaking to an agent, if you're not able to effectively market yourself, how can a home seller expect you to effectively market their property? Yeah. If they can't, if you're not visible on Google or on any of the major platforms, how can a home seller expect you to promote their property on any of the major platforms and get that extra exposure? And so really what you're doing is you're helping agents not only leverage the power of bold trails or CRM, but you're also helping them create that digital footprint.
Yeah, and that digital footprint is more important today than it ever has been because there's so much competition out there. We just wrapped up, as you know, Johnny, we just wrapped up one of the worst years in real estate in 30 years.
Yeah, people are like, they think 2007, but there were still transactions happening in 2007.
Yeah, we're just in a very unique position in real estate with what's happened with interest rates has caused transaction volume to drop to a 30-year low. And so there's more competition out there for that small piece of pie.
Yep.
And if you're serious about being a real estate agent and you're going to stay in this market, you don't want to be that 70% that didn't close a transaction last year.
Unbelievable.
Isn't that crazy?
People don't believe me when I tell them that in the living room. They're like, yeah, right. I was like, look it up. It's on Inman News. You know?
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to reach out to you and learn more about your coaching program, learn about how you can help them get their CRM or establish that digital footprint, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah. So thank you for that. I'm on YouTube at the Bold Trail Academy.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook at the Bold Trail Academy, and I'm on TikTok, Bold Trail Academy. Yeah, big TikTok guy.
Awesome.
So yeah, just Bold Trail Academy. I have branded it similar to Bold Trail, the company. Mm-hmm. And like I said, my goal really is to show people how to use the platform, but really to engage.
Love it.
You got to launch. You got to launch, guys.
Launch it to the next level.
Or just a level.
A level.
In some cases.
0 to 1. Well, hey, thanks for being on the show today, Alex.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Why on earth were they voted #1 team in Roseville for the past 3 years? Why do they have so many 5-star Google reviews? Well, it's simple. Johnny Jennings and his team at Made for More Realty, they sell homes faster and for more money than anyone else in our area. So it's simple. Want 3 cash offers on your home in as-is condition? Just Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty, Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty, and get more for your home.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
Man, I'm blown away. I had no idea, but you're claiming that Zillow, the folks over there, listen to our podcast?
Zillow loves your show. I don't know if they're a big fan of you per se, but they've been listening to your show. And really, some of the accusations that you've been claiming about Zillow and what their plans are. Can you clarify and explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the more controversial one is that they're trying to do an end run around the MLSs and create one national platform that they control. I think that's the big one. The not so, controversial subject is that they're trying to create an end-to-end user platform where all people have to do if they're looking to buy or sell a home is to just go to Zillow.com, and whether it's mortgage, title, agents, search,
sure, why not?
rentals, anything they can be found there.
One-stop shop for all your needs, right?
Competition. I'm a fan of competition.
Why?
Because it gives
what's
the
the
consumer
problem you
choice.
have with what Zillow's trying to do?
The problem that I have with what Zillow's trying to do is they are saying that it's for the good of the consumer, and that's why they exist, when really what they're doing is they're eliminating competition, and competition is not, like the lack of competition is not good for the consumer. So they're posturing themselves as they're almost like a humanitarian, like I'm here for the people type of a thing, when really they're a for-profit company that has built that for-profit company off paying very few taxes. Granted, it may be legal, but they're generating a lot of revenue, not paying a lot in taxes, and their whole model has been built off the backs of real estate agents who are actually doing the work.
And so what are you saying they're starting to do now that you don't like?
So one of the things that they're starting to do is they are very anti. So there's this thing called clear cooperation.
Right.
Clear cooperation, just in case anybody isn't familiar with it, you have to put, if you're a real estate agent, you have to put your listings, your for sales in the MLS, and then so that way everybody can see the inventory. Sounds great. Zillow is very pro that, and they're saying anybody that doesn't do that is anti-consumer, anti the seller. I want to see the data.
Yeah.
Right? I want to show me where the consumer wants to see this.
Right.
And so
that's one of his claims. He says that sellers are the ones pushing for this claim that sellers are the ones pushing for private listings. Show me the consumer data on that.
Yep. So again, the one that they're not mentioning, but who they're basically addressing that question to is Compass, because Compass is one of the top brokerages in the country, and they've been pushing hard their private listings.
Oh, okay.
So you have to come to us to see the private listings. Now, I can see where some people are like, well, hey, that isn't good for the consumer because not everybody's able to see these private listings, but where some sellers fall is they don't want everybody to be able to see their property. They don't want everybody and their mom to be able to see the furniture, the layout. Like they would like some privacy and discretion.
Right.
And if you can have the privacy and discretion and still get the price you want, many people are choosing to go that route.
He says that consumers and agents are being misled about these private listings. For big brokerages, any competitive advantage would be short-lived.
Okay, well then Zillow, stop doing Zillow Showcase, because you're getting mad at these private off-market listings, but at the same time you're selling a product that promotes other listings,
right? And
the only way you can promote other listings is by suppressing listings on your platform. So those listings that are being suppressed are harder to find. How is that any different? It's just a variation of the theme. So you just don't like it because you can't control it. Right. And it goes back to Zillow's need for control. If Zillow suddenly becomes like just one of many options, their value in the marketplace diminishes.
What do you think their argument would be? Because they say they advocate for open, transparent marketplace.
Then why
you're claiming that they're not completely open and transparent, or that they are highlighting other properties more than others, and they're doing this showcase. What do you think their argument would be?
I have no idea. Hey, we're a for-profit company. You can still see, what they would probably say is you can still see all of them. It's just we're promoting these other ones.
Right.
And okay, well, does everybody know that? Does everybody know that these are being promoted?
Well, it's no different than what Google does when you go search Google, right? They highlight certain search results.
But it also says ad. It also says ad at the top. Like you kind of know, like, hey, at least they're paying. A lot of times, I don't know about you, but for me, I don't even click on the ads. I scroll down a little bit, and I look for the first organic one.
So the CIO says that it's not part of their plan to get into the brokerage business. You don't believe him when he says that?
Well, he used the word plan, and plans change. So I absolutely do not believe that. And here's why. Zillow is, again, a for-profit company. Their sole objective is to please shareholders and drive profits. Right now, what they're doing is, let me take you back a little bit. When they first started, there was a thing called Premier Agent. And that was where, as a real estate agent, you could pay to have your face on Zillow. It wasn't even your listing. Like, it doesn't have to be you.
Right.
And they would put your information up there, and you would then be able to, any of the leads that came in based off of a zip code, or you or a number of other agents, because sometimes it wasn't just, they weren't selling it to one agent, they were selling it to many agents. They would get the info, and then the agent would call you and try to solicit your business. That was Premier Agent. Since about 2020, 2021, somewhere around there, they started rolling out a program called Flex. And what Zillow Flex is designed for is larger teams, brokerages even, where anybody who's looking to buy or sell a house can pop on Zillow, and now they're funneling all these leads. It's like Premier on steroids.
Right.
And so what's happened is a lot of teams have done crazy numbers of transactions. Like their volume has increased based solely off Premier, and so based solely off Zillow Flex. And if you're running a real estate team or a brokerage, and 20%, 25% or more of your business is based off of Zillow Flex, I would argue you don't own your business. Zillow owns your business, because what they can do and what they have done is they've taken those Zillow Flex contracts away and they've reassigned them to other teams. So you don't have any control over that. And if your business is based 50, 60, 80, 90% off of these Zillow Flex leads, you don't own your business. Zillow does. And when Zillow owns your business, again, keep in mind when they rolled out Flex, it was somewhere around 30, 35% that the agent was paying out as a referral fee.
Right.
It's now gone up to 40%, and now they're incorporating a monthly fee. So the cost to be in this program has increased. But what Zillow can do is, rather than pay out 40%, what if they just bring these teams in-house? Yeah. And now it's not a Zillow Flex team, it's a Zillow team.
Right.
Right. It's not Steve Smith Real Estate or Luxury Presence Real Estate or whatever the team name is or the brokerage name is. It's Zillow.
Yeah.
And if they're they are a for-profit company, so why wouldn't they do that?
Right.
They just don't want the cat. They just don't want to let the cat out of the bag. They don't, because then they're going to scare away all these Zillow teams, and then they're going to start looking for leads elsewhere, and it's going to impact their Flex program.
Well, apparently these hidden networks are triggering a response from them. It seems to be working to some degree, to some level, because he's responding. He's saying, I don't see the benefit of hiding inventory ever from the broader market. I think if you allow windowing a longer period, let's say 14 days, you run into the identical problems that you're running into with office exclusives today.
Yeah,
but they offer that themselves.
They do. I mean, yes, they do. It's totally just double speak. They're saying, hey, this is bad, and just because we call it something different, ours is good. That's all it is.
Yeah,
that's all it really is, and it's just really frustrating because the whole reason why. So as a real estate agent's perspective, one of the benefits to me is I can now market a person's home. There's many ways that we can market a home.
Right.
One of the ways is putting it on the MLS, and then that gets shared out on the major platforms.
Right.
But if I now have to pay to have access to the MLS, now I have to pay to have access to Zillow, now I have to pay to have access to these other platforms, it becomes really expensive to now market on all those other platforms. So I would say Zillow, figure out a different model, stop being greedy. I would honestly say if Zillow's offering Zillow Showcase in an MLS, that MLS should not allow them to do that. Like lock it down. That's not what we're about.
Well, I'm sure he's listening. Errol, if you have a response to these claims that what Johnny is saying, we'd love to hear from you. What's your phone number?
Yeah, you can reach me at 855-935-MORE, 855-935-6673.
There you go, Errol. We'll love to have you on the show, and you and Johnny can go at it together live on the show.
It'll be fun.
Well, spring is officially here. The weather's getting better. Maybe it's finally time. You're seeing all your neighbors do it. Maybe it's finally time to put your home on the market, but you're thinking, oh my goodness, it's too much of a hassle. I don't want to go through all those open houses, showings, get my house organized, do all of those costly home repairs. Did you know there's an easier way? Just reach out to Johnny Jennings. He guarantees at least 3 cash offers on your home in as-is condition. He's done it many times. It's nothing new to him. Take advantage of it. It's simple, it's easy, it's fast. Again, 3 cash offers on your home in as-is condition. Why not give it a shot? All you got to do is Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty. Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty and get more for your home.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
I read an article recently and it's crazy. And it claims that renting is now cheaper than owning in all major U.S. cities. And this is according to LendingTree.
So your rent is going to be much cheaper than your mortgage payment?
Correct. Yeah. And that's a tough place to be in the housing market, because if it's cheaper to rent than why own.
Right,
Over the
correct.
long term, you're building equity. I
Right.
get all that. But for the people who are, counting the cost of eggs, factoring
Right.
gas into the cost of their monthly, gas. Like we have a friend, she knows every day for her to drive to and from work, it's $12.
Right.
And so when people are factoring those types of numbers in, man, this makes financial sense for me to just buy a house right now.
Right. It just depends, I guess, on your life situation and your financial situation.
Yeah.
For some people, it's still, I want to buy a home. I can afford it. The interest rate, I can afford the monthly. What, right? That's what you're always pushing. It all
Yep.
comes down to the monthly.
Absolutely.
And so for some, it's like, hey, I want to buy a house. I can do this. I can afford the monthly. I don't want to rent. I want to own my own home. So for them, it's still doable. But for those that are right there, where they're comparing the rent and the mortgage payment, and they are considering all the other expenses, whether it's energy bills or grocery prices, gas prices, then right now the easier choice is to rent. Then that's still hard for me to believe too. I guess wouldn't it depend on the neighborhood and the type of home that you're wanting to rent?
So I wouldn't say it's like every instance it's cheaper to rent than to own, but just in the major U.S. cities. And the thing that I think a lot of buyers are nervous about is, as Ryan Lundquist said in his blog, the R word. They're worried about the R word, and the R word is recession. And they're worried about, hey, it's cheaper to rent than to own. What happens if we then buy this house and home prices go down? Now we're paying more for a house that's worth less when we could have just rented the whole time and never had that risk factor to begin with.
But I heard, I was watching Fox Business News yesterday, and I forget what the main guy on there, his name is, but he's buddies with Trump. He said he looked at a couple of different numbers as far as like manufacturing and industry and business growth, those numbers, not necessarily inflation or anything like that. And he says those are signs that we are not in a recession and that things are going to turn around.
So I
guess it depends on who you ask.
It
right?
depends. All I know is that locally in the Sacramento region, it definitely is feeling a little recession-y. Like, I'm not saying we're in a recession.
And you're basing that just based off of real estate, though.
Yeah. So recession-y, at least in the real estate market, not across like manufacturing and all these other different industries. Just simply because there was such a boom of homes that came on the market in January. Like, it was insane. In many instances, 2x of what happened last year. Now, granted, that's still below normal levels, but just to see that massive increase year over year of inventory come to the market.
What does that mean then?
It means there's more competition. So it's classic supply demand.
Right.
If there's more supply, right, then demand goes down. If demand goes down, prices go down. And so for homeowners, are seeing the prices softening on many of their homes. They're either staying flat or going down. Now, if your home is priced correctly, if it's been well maintained, if it looks great, smells great, and is in a great location, those are still flying off the market. But if you are in an average home, maybe there's some deferred maintenance, and maybe you need top dollar in order to get that house sold, those ones are sitting.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see
what happens.
happens.
It is softening. And so I'm not saying that we're in a recession. Ryan Lundquist doesn't claim that we're in a recession. It's just, I am definitely seeing it's a little spongy. We're not like increasing,
What could change that? Do you feel like the president has the power to have some effect in preventing a recession? Like, as far as, a lot of people are weary about these tariffs, and is he able to bring down grocery prices, especially eggs? Eggs seem to be dropping in the past few weeks. Gas prices seem to have been dropping.
Yep.
Do you think what can change this? What can change the trajectory of what you're saying could possibly be a recession, at least in real estate?
So as far as the president having an impact on these industries, I would say that depends on the president. The guy who
current president that we have now.
I know, but the guy who was in previously, I would not have said could have had an impact on these types of things. The guy who's in now definitely is intentionally making moves, and we'll see if those moves end up being a good thing for the economy or not. Are tariffs a good thing or not?
Okay, so if you had a sit-down meeting with President Trump and you wanted him to take some actions to improve the real estate industry and prevent us from going into a recession in the housing market, what would you tell him to do?
Well, my hope would be that they could get the local government on board to make it easier and cheaper to build houses. Like, just cut the red tape.
Right.
Make it.
Well, Governor Gavin Newsom said he's doing that.
Governor,
So-
yeah, well, and I'm telling you, dude, he's running for president.
Well, yeah, that's a given.
Everybody's like, people are fighting me on it. They're like, no, he's not running for president. No, that dude is totally running for president. He's already reframing his political
So you're
opinion.
saying though that one of the reasons that we might see a recession is increased inventory, and so how would building more houses prevent that? Because it would not even be more inventory.
So so there's a home shortage. Like, have you noticed, like when you drive down the freeways, you see all these billboards for ADUs?
Yeah.
So that's something that I would argue Gavin has done, where he has made it easier and cheaper for people to build accessory dwelling units, like mother-in-law units, on their property to help with the housing shortage. But as far as home prices are insanely high. Like if you talk to somebody, like what they're making and what they have to pay towards their monthly mortgage versus what somebody was like as a percentage. We're not talking dollars, but as a percentage.
Sure.
10 years ago, 20 years ago.
I've seen those numbers. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty astonishing.
It's not sustainable for families because they may be able to pay that mortgage payment, but then are they going to be able to help send their kid to college?
Right.
Are they going to be able to pay for their kid's wedding?
Right.
Are they going to be able to save for retirement?
Yeah.
And so
you don't think if interest rates come down, we'll see things turn around a little bit? Like, let's say interest rates come down to the 4s.
If interest rates drop, then prices will stay strong. Prices will stay strong or go up. That's why really there needs to be a national increase in housing supply, because if now there's an increase in supply, prices, and then interest rates drop, then prices may if there's enough supply, prices may still drop, but it won't be as hard. It'll be more affordable all around for everybody to own a home and jump into that asset class. Whereas right now, it is really challenging for people. Like you see family members, grandparents taking out seconds or putting reverse mortgages on their property in order to help their grandkids buy a house.
Right.
Like this is not an uncommon thing.
Right.
And if that's what they're doing now, what's that going to look like in 10, 20, 30 years when now those kids are parents, grandparents trying to help out their family.
Right.
And it's typically regulation only grows. So my suggestion would be cut the regulation. Well, and that's it. When we come back, next week we will talk about how Redfin was bought by Rocket Mortgage. So who knows? I think Zillow may have some competition finally.